Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my co-ordinator commentary Ashton, and this is our Monday Night Raw review. I'm just going to keep it very succinct, guys. There was quite a bit on this Raw that I thoroughly enjoyed and that I'm actually excited to give praise to. I actually felt like this was a solid show. Here's the thing, though. The things that really pissed me off, really pissed me off. There were at least three things, so spoiler, I have a full roster of Heat of the Night coming in our next segment here in a little bit, and that really bumped the score down. On the whole, I think I'll still give this Raw a 7 out of 10, which is the grade I had in mind. But, man, like, lowest I would give it as a 6 at least, because, again, some stuff left a bad taste in my mouth. But, partner, what did you think about Raw tonight?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm going to do what you like to do, and I'm going to give it a compliment sandwich. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready for it.
So, the top piece of bread, the good news, is that I think this episode of Raw was more entertaining than Fastlane last night.
Oh, certainly. I completely agree with you in that regard.
The bad news is the stuff about this Raw that I didn't like was all pointing towards WrestleMania, and that's bad news for WrestleMania.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
And the stuff, on the other hand, the other compliment that I want to give is that I actually enjoyed quite a bit, and there were at least 2 or 3 things about this Raw that I actually really did enjoy that I will talk quite positively about when we get around to talking about those segments.
Absolutely. So before we get to the good stuff, we got to wade through the bad stuff, which is exactly why we have our next segment, Heat of the Night. And I'm going to go first, partner, because as I've been telling you, I'm raring to go. I'm just going to go with the one right off the top of my head. I hate how Braun Strowman has been treated in the past 24 hours. I mean, I can get past barely the Fastlane loss, and really why I didn't like that, I feel like they made Braun look stupid. You know, going to the top rope, and like, why do that when you can just pick him up and try your power slam again? But I digress. That's bad enough. But I'm like, it's okay. He's still Braun Strowman. And he comes out, he calls out Roman Reigns, even gets a great dig. You know, Chicago doesn't like you, and neither do I. And he's still got his presence and everything. And you know I've said for the last few months, Braun to me is the best part of Raw. Well, that streak got broken too. They broke both of Braun's streaks in just 24 hours. Unfucking believable. Because Taker comes out. Not Roman, Taker. So we're doing this now a day later than we thought they would. And again, I'd be okay with it. But Braun just leaves the ring to Taker. And again, I'm thinking, well, wow, that's really bad. Because it's Taker, who is really at his apex of humanity after losing to Lesnar and, you know, all subsequent years. Like, we know he's mortal. We know he's a man. Braun shouldn't back down so easily. But I'm thinking, well, at least he'll come back to get his hands on Reigns like he was, you know, really wanting to do all night, right? No. The moment he leaves the ring to Taker, that's Braun Strowman for the night. That's a fucking disgrace. That is a disgrace that you have this amazing monster character, that you have his undefeated streak end last night, which, again, it's bound to happen eventually, and we're always glad when the loss gets out of the way. But then you do this? He just, without even a wrong word in Taker's direction, just leaves the ring. I'm like, okay. And doesn't even, and I'm thinking, well, maybe he's picking his spot. No picking his spot. He never came back. So, yeah, that's my first scene of the night. I hated how Braun was utilized here tonight. Disgraceful to me. What did you think?
Yeah. Really, honestly, to me, I completely understand what you're saying. I get that the way Strowman has been portrayed is really pathetic. It really is. Because to me, like, to go from undefeated monster, best part about Raw, to, oh, you're going to go up top and try and do a splash, but that's a great spectacle, but then you lose the match, and all of a sudden there's a dent in your armor, and then the following night you basically get portrayed as a coward. Now, the one positive, because we do like to at least try to spin some of these into positives, that I will say, Braun has always been about, we fight on my time, not yours. So obviously it wasn't, he didn't want to fight The Undertaker tonight. He wanted to fight Roman Reigns. So when Taker showed up, he was just like, oh, well, I didn't want you, so we're not fighting, so bye.
Right. You know what? And I completely agree with you, and I can definitely be sympathetic to that point. There's only one more thing I have to say about this, and then I'm very curious what, if any, heats of the night you have about this show. I'm very concerned that we're going to get like a Kozlov 2.0 situation out of this. Now, let me give context here, because we all know when Vladimir Kozlov first came to the company, they had like this cold calculating Russian, this Sambo expert, and he had, much like Braun, this big undefeated streak. He even beat Undertaker at one point on an episode of SmackDown. But then when WrestleMania season came, Michaels beat him, gave him his first loss, and that was for the right to challenge Taker at WrestleMania 25. And then Taker beat him the Tuesday or Thursday after on SmackDown, getting his win back. And then it was all downhill for him from there. Braun's already had his first loss. I'm curious of what they're going to do with this, since Braun did have the stare down with Taker, is if, much like Shawn and Kozlov, they'll have down the road Braun versus Roman in a rematch, because Braun's not going to let it go. Winner gets to face Taker, and Roman wins again. Now, again, I'd be cool with that, but I just don't know what that would mean for the future of Strowman, given how bad Raw is creatively. Is this the beginning of the slippery slope of the Strowman? I don't know. And that's really what worries me. But that's all I wanted to get off my chest. Unless you have anything to add to my heat of the night, I'm very curious what your roster's looking like for this tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the first big one that I wanted to bring up that I'm actually kind of surprised wasn't your first big heat of the night was that I'm really getting sick of Enzo and Cass. Like, there's nothing going on with them that makes me like them. I'm honestly struggling to figure out who I'm even supposed to be cheering for between them and Sheamus Cesaro. And really, like, even though Gallows and Anderson are great in-ring workers, and we know about that, especially Anderson, they haven't really done anything recently to warrant me booing them either. So the whole tag team division on Raw is really falling apart, and I think a big reason for that is because Enzo and Cass are just annoying.
I, again, completely agree with you. I think the only reason I didn't make it a heat of the night or even a nitpick is because I feel like I've almost become numb to it. But, like, even seeing the, because I have it in my notes, the backstage segment that Enzo and Cass have with Sheamus and Cesaro, I left that segment thinking, why is Enzo such a douche? Like, because he was clearly instigating, you know what I mean? Like, it was very apparent. Like, Sheamus and Cesaro, yeah, they got their digs in, but I think that was only in defense to the verbal barbs that Enzo was throwing their way. And again, if there is ever a split between Enzo and Cass, I won't even be able to fault Cass with the trajectory of how this is going, because he doesn't even say shit. Like, he keeps his mind focused like, Enzo, we got a tag title rematch, don't worry about it. Enzo cannot help, even commentary said it, Enzo cannot help shooting his goddamn mouth off, and it annoys the fuck out of me too. So yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you there.
Yeah, man. All right, well, what's your second heat of the night?
Second heat of the night, I'm going to keep this very simple. When I saw that Emma vignette, dude, I gotta be honest, I saw red. It was like out-of-body rage. I'm just gonna read from my notes here. Fuck you, WWE, for the Emma vignette. I am not investing in this fucking shit again. Go fuck yourself with a railroad spike and the blank pages signifying the creative direction you have for Emma. Eat my shit. Did not care for that at all. I'm tired of them talking about Emma. In the words of Doctor of Thugonomics John Cena, be about it. Do something with her. That's when I'll fucking care. I'm not going on this ride again. So yeah, I just had to voice my displeasure with that. I hated seeing that. Very curious what Jackie thought of it, because I actually had to suppress the urge to vomit. What did you think of the Emma vignette? Or did you just roll your eyes like I did?
Honestly, I didn't see the red that you saw. I really saw the light at the end of the tunnel, because either A, they're going to drag this out until the draft and she's going to end up on SmackDown, which would make me happy, or B, they're going to have her return sometime between now and, like, I don't know, like freaking April, I guess. And she's actually going to have, like, a role on Raw. But regardless, Evil Emma is the GOAT. So I'm perfectly okay with them going back to her. And just seeing them acknowledge her in the purple gear with the shoulder pads and the sunglasses and the purple lipstick and everything, that got me excited. Even though it's probably, I'm fully embracing the idea that she is not going to be on Raw, and then at the draft, she's going to get drafted to SmackDown, and that's going to be the first time that we actually see this version of Emma in over a year. I've embraced that idea, and I'm okay with it because it means she'll be on TV, and it means because she'll be on SmackDown that we'll be most likely live reacting to her segment. So, like, yes, I'm 100% invested in that idea. The worst case scenario, in my opinion, is they drag it out until the post-Mania Raw, and then we get our evil Emma back that we've always wanted.
And you know what, dude? I think that's the source of it, because you're not wrong with anything you're saying, right? I just think that's why I saw red. Again, I want Emma to succeed. I think you know that. I don't have to tell you or anybody that. I just think it's the journey that is just emotionally exhausting me. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. But to tack on to the positivity you were saying, because we do try and keep it positive here, and I'm trying very hard with these heats of the night to find a positive. You know, I'm hoping when Evil Emma does return, it's just a little bit after the summer program that I'm assuming is going to be happening between Bayley and Sasha, where I see Bayley coming out on top, and then Emma goes right after Bayley straight away. So I don't want them to waste any freaking time. We've already waited long enough. At best, if you have to do a program prior to that, I mean, Sasha's going to be heel, so I don't know what babyface she could feud with. Which is why I do love your idea on the whole of her just going to SmackDown Live so we avoid all this altogether. But yeah, that's really my point. If she's going to return, I hope it's right at the point where Bayley will have concluded her latest feud before that, and then she could get right in the mix with Emma. I would love that. So we'll see what happens. Do you have any other heats tonight? Because I know Enzo and Cass was your first. So...
let me tell you what. I have another one. I don't know if I want to say it now or wait until you get your other one out, because we might have the same one.
I'll tell you right now, bro. My third one was the women's segment tonight with Bayley, Stephanie, and all.
I knew it. That's why I was hesitant, because I knew that's what it would be, and that's also my second one.
You go first, then, and I leave the floor to you.
Okay, so my issue stems from the Stephanie McMahon problem, because she's just the worst. But also, I want to kind of point out that Mick Foley opening this segment didn't make it any better. This is supposed to be about the women and the women's championship, and you're starting the segment with a man, because apparently your women need the stamp of approval from a man. You know, that obviously irks me. But then Bayley comes out. She does the babyface thing. Oh, I don't feel good about the title win because of everything. And then Sasha comes out and she's just like, Bayley, let's tear the house down at WrestleMania. And that's fine. And then Charlotte comes out, and yet again, Charlotte comes off as loud and obnoxious, albeit, but as a loud and obnoxious good guy. She's basically pointing out that Sasha is manipulating Bayley, and then Stephanie comes out and basically concurs with Charlotte and says, like, yeah, Sasha is the most manipulative person in the locker room. She is just kind of, getting close to Bayley so that she can take her title from her.
Yeah, here's my thing with this segment. First of all, I agree with you. Stephanie was just garbage. Like, again, I was seeing red, and it was because of her that time. What bothered me about this was, I felt like there was a kernel of something good here. Because I'll be honest, I liked Bayley's promo to start. I know I heard you remark that I don't think you cared for Bayley's promo too much. I actually liked it. Because I felt like she was very genuine. Like, I was sitting there, I was watching, Charlotte and Becky and Sasha fight for that championship, and I wanted to be champion, and just everything she said, I'm like, you know what, that's a good promo. And I also like, to Bayley's credit, she explicitly conveyed discomfort at Sasha's presence. And I like that. Now, what I didn't like, actually, one of my biggest problems, if I was to rank them in order, I agree with you with Stephanie at number one. Sasha, though, was my second biggest problem, because she comes out, doesn't even acknowledge Bayley's discomfort at her presence. And she's like, oh, and this line got me scratching my head, right? Because she's like, oh, well, Charlotte, we don't know if Dana Brooke would have been out there or not. And I'm like, but she wasn't, though. Like, even when you were out there, Sasha, she wasn't, though. Like, no appearance whatsoever in that match. So what? And then yeah, she goes into the whole thing about a WrestleMania match. So you're not even going to acknowledge that Bayley clearly didn't like you out there. And Bayley, on her part, you're not going to press, Sasha, why were you out there? Or not even ask one time, hey, is Charlotte telling the truth? Do you feel like I can't beat her? Do you feel like I can't stand on my own 2 feet? Like, I feel like there was great potential here with the tension between these two. And maybe it was a deliberate move, but I really wish it would have been explored more, because I feel like that would have made this segment so much better for me personally. So, yeah, that was my biggest disappointment.
Yeah. I mean, Stephanie and Charlotte together, I struggle to comprehend most of what they say, just because Charlotte is constantly screaming her lines and it's borderline unintelligible, and Stephanie is getting CM Punk chants in the background louder than she can go, until she literally starts screaming almost as loud as Charlotte does usually, and that pisses the crowd off enough that they just kind of let it go.
Yeah, and dude, thank you again for bringing up Charlotte, because that's the one thing I didn't hit on when I was responding to our shared heat of the night. You know it's just a bad segment on its face when the heel is the one bringing the logic to the party. And that's why I think I really hated this so much, because I'm like, I shouldn't be in agreement with the heel, especially one that's, so full of themselves and this and that, as Charlotte is. Like, she shouldn't have any ground to stand on. The moment you give her ground, especially at the expense of a babyface like Bayley, that is just bad. And, again, like, even to Charlotte's credit, and those are words I never thought would come out of my mouth, like, you could see that they were trying to figure a way out of the Fastlane booking. So then Charlotte comes in with, oh, well, we know why you did it, Sasha, because our agreement at Roadblock, as long as I was champion, you wouldn't get a shot. Well, that's an interesting motivation. Let's run with that. Except, again, Bayley never presses her on it, and I feel like it's never followed up by the people that actually matter. I mean,
and also, I just want to say, when was that even brought up? I don't ever remember that stipulation being a thing until tonight.
You know what? I think, here's the thing. It wasn't necessarily explicit, but I think it was heavily implied, because the name of the show, remember, was like Roadblock End of the Line, and they were like, oh, this is the end of the line. I think they really did establish, like, yeah, this is going to be the final match between these two. So I don't even know if they ever made it like an explicit stipulation, but I think it was hyped up as, yeah, the final encounter and blah, 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 blah. So, Charlotte bringing that up, I'm like, cool. But where it would have mean a lot more is if Bayley, again, talked to Sasha about it. Like, hearing Charlotte and Stephanie chirp about it, I don't care, because they're conniving and they're heels and they're awful. I want to feel that tension between Sasha and Bayley, and they just didn't capitalize on it. So, yeah, this segment, I was just kind of shaking my head. And why does Stephanie have to put her nose in everything? Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Why is Charlotte, like, agreeing with her when only a few months ago Stephanie tore Charlotte a new asshole over how she treated her father? Like, nothing makes sense. God, would you logic, please, Raw, for once?
Nope, never.
Never gonna happen.
Never gonna give you up. Sorry, I'm done.
No, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, that's pretty much what this segment deserves, really, if we're being honest. Is there anything else you wanted to say, though?
Can we actually physically rickroll a segment? That sounds amazing.
Well, I think we just did, partner. I think you just did, and it was amazing. So, if there's anything else you want to add, I guess we can formally get into our review here.
Do it.
All right. Then let us get right on to our Monday Night Raw review. Now, we open up at first with a quick recap of Fastlane last night, but then our first formal segment of the show, Chris Jericho addresses the WWE Universe. Ashton, what do you think about this opening segment?
Oh, man. Jericho is so over tonight. People love Jericho. And, I got to tell you, I actually feel like he isn't phoning it in, even though that's kind of grown to be typical of babyface Jericho. I felt like he was putting in some effort tonight. He did drop the freaking do whatever it in, man, Jericho thing, the list of Jericho that it used to be. Tonight, I don't remember what the first one was, but the second one was the Friends of Jericho, and then it was like Cheer Me On, man. He did it twice. So that was a little bit on the excessive side, but still, I appreciate that he's still got like the inflections and stuff in his voice and everything that he kind of got over with as a heel, and he's keeping them as a babyface. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, brother, I completely agree with you. I said in my notes here, my opening line was, as much as I hate that Raw always opens with a talking segment, you can make it serviceable when you've got a guy out there that's an experienced promoist like Jericho is. And as far as that line you were referring to, I actually quoted in my notes. The first one was, he stuck a knife in the back of Jericho, twisted in, man. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I really appreciated babyface Jericho here conveying his hurt over Owens's betrayal. I feel like he came off, again, much like I said earlier about Bailey, very genuine. I could feel the sadness and the hurt that he was experiencing. And then Owens comes out. What did you think about Owens' portion? Because I thought he killed it here. I really enjoyed his reasoning.
Oh yeah, Owens. I mean, the thing with Owens is he's been on fire from a promo perspective since the Festival of Friendship. Really, I feel
Yeah,
like he's been on top of the world from a promo. Like, when he says, I love that he just comes right out and says, like, no, Jericho, you were never my best friend. Sami Zayn was my best friend, and I turned on him too, but you were never my best friend. You were only ever a tool that I used to maintain my championship.
Yeah, I thought that was great. The moment he initially said that Jericho was a tool, Chicago's venom was just all on Kevin Owens. Like, the heat he garnered was fantastic. And quick side note, I do have to give Raw credit here. Kevin Owens' promo, it addressed the elephant in the room that you and I kind of talked about a little bit. And I think I may have even mentioned on live reactions, the rematch clause. Kevin Owens said he can get a rematch for the Universal Championship anytime he wants. That wording's important because I guarantee you, unless Brock Lesnar has a babyface turn, he's going to wait until the belt's back on a full-time guy. And then whoever that full-time guy is, that's probably going to be your KO program in the future. But in the present, since KO established that, he said the one thing I really want to do is take your title from you. So, Jericho in his portion of the segment had challenged Kevin Owens to a match at Mania. Kevin Owens is like, oh, that's cool with me if that belt's on the line. Jericho says done. So we got that match confirmed, Jericho versus Owens for the United States Championship. And then Jericho says, that's WrestleMania. That's in 27 days. What's stopping you from coming to this ring right now? Kevin Owens says, what's stopping me? Nothing. And then, he walks down. They get into a brawl. But then Joe comes out and he's aiding Owens. And now, before I go any further, I mean, Ashton, again, I think about our fantasy booking, bro, and about, the whole Triple H faction idea that you had. Do you feel like at least something like that, or even a poor man's version of your idea, might be coming to fruition here with Joe coming to
No,
the aid of KO?
not
No?
really. I think it really just comes down to mutual interests. Maybe like in my head canon, I'll try to I'll try to imagine that Joe and Kevin Owens are like in secret meetings with Triple H backstage, but until they acknowledge it, I'm not going to say that it's a real thing.
And you know what? That's fair enough. I totally understand where you're coming from because Lord knows when you really invest in something, you're just repeatedly let down. And I speak from very painful experience. But yeah, I mean, Joe comes out, he helps Owens, but then Sami Zayn comes out with a steel chair. It seems like he's evening the odds at first, but then Joe retakes control. But then Jericho comes back in and he finishes the job with the chair. So the baby faces stand tall. I thought this segment had great energy. I thought everybody really came off great here. I just enjoyed it. I feel like this is a great way to start the show. And yeah, no complaints about this segment. This is actually starting the show off high to me. So good stuff.
For sure.
All right, moving right along, just as the show did, we get right into Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. Now, see, this was weird for me, right? Because on the one hand, I'm really glad that Raw didn't go the route of a tag team match. And yet, on the other hand, even though I know that Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn is a good go-to match, I'm like, do we really need to see this on Raw again? But to Raw's credit, the way they booked it, I mean, great, man. And I'm not just saying that because of my, Sami Zayn getting brutalized boner, though that was certainly satisfied because this is more or less a squash match. I mean, Kevin Owens dominated. Zayn got a little bit of offense, but after the dive that he did over the rope, when he got Kevin Owens back in the ring, when Zayn got back in the ring, pop-up powerbomb out of nowhere, and then it was all dominance Owens. And that was amazing. I loved seeing him just demolish Zayn. It kind of sucks that Zayn had to be the fall guy, because he lost to Joe the night prior. But the thing is, I think that's what makes Zayn such a great babyface, is he really can take that loss and he really can be at maximum vulnerability and thereby maximum sympathy. So yeah, Kevin Owens just destroyed him, got a second pop-up powerbomb for the win, and Owens was dominant. And I think this was Raw's idea of rehabilitation after losing to Goldberg in 21.2 seconds the night prior. But I even put in my notes the one line that I want to quote here: the Kevin Owens we saw in this match, to me, that should be his default setting. Like, I want that to be Kevin Owens going forward. I thought he was dominant. I thought he really bared his teeth, and I loved it. What did you think about all this?
Yeah, man, absolutely. I think, man, yeah, this was some good stuff. I thought, Raw's opener as a whole was good, and then Owens Zayn, like the fact that Owens dominated Zayn as much as he did inside, I will admit, but it fits, and like you said, it was kind of rehab because Owens kind of needed it after last night. So, yeah, I mean, Zayn, I hate that he's just kind of like, the lamb going out to slaughter at this point. I wish he would be in a more prominent position. It'd be nice if, like, he and Joe, one of them has anything to do right now, could find their way into the United States Championship match, but maybe it's too personal between Owens and Jericho. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with you. Like, all kidding aside, because I know I love doing the ball busting with Zayn, like, he is an amazing talent and an amazing babyface, and I really do feel like he should be higher up on the card. I'm amazed he still hasn't even won a title yet on the main roster. I thought he would have had at least a mid-card title run by now, if I'm being honest. But, I mean, I can only hope that Zayn gets the nod sooner rather than later, because he's putting in the work. He's not afraid to look vulnerable, which, again, I think is going to pay him back huge, so long as Raw Creative permits it. And, yeah, I think he's a great babyface. I think Owens, is very lucky to have a babyface like Zayn to work with to get that heat back. And, yeah, this was really well done. I just hope that Zayn gets something worthwhile to do at Mania, and it just might be the U.S. title. You never know. I mean, the way this Mania card's looking, brother, I've just kind of thrown my hands up in the air. Whatever happens, happens. But is there anything else you want to say about this match?
I don't think so, no.
All right, well, then we get cruiserweight action. I mean, before that, we get Austin Aries' package again. Get it, guys? Isn't it so funny? His package. Yeah. Then we get Neville versus Rich Swann for the Cruiserweight Championship. I'll be honest, bro, this is one of my favorite Cruiserweight matches since the division became an established thing on Raw. This was amazing. I put that this was a very physical.
There was a spot in this match where Neville threw Swann at the ring, and, like, I don't know if it was a botch because, like, it seemed like Swann was, like, thinking, like, do I want to slide under the rope and into the ring, or do I want to, like, flip forward and let my back hit the LED board and, like, fall to the ground? Like, Neville threw me into the ring side, and he ended up being halfway in the middle, and his head landed straight in the LED board like a freaking lawn dart.
Yeah, I even put here, I was worried about Swann, like that he was going to be full-blown concussed.
I would not be surprised if there would be a report coming out after Raw is over that Swann got a legit concussion, yes.
The only thing that kind of relieved me a little bit is that, like the psychology, at least on Neville's part, like he was very focused on the head. His superplex is a thing of beauty. I actually buy it being devastating, the way commentary puts it over and the way Swann sold it. Like, again, the word I keep coming back to with this match, it was so physical. And you know what? I know Swann technically returned last night at the Fastlane pre-show, but as far as like really reorienting yourself and reestablishing yourself in the division, this is the match Swann needed. In fact, I know my friend Ricardo, because you remember that Swann and him, they used to work in Force One together. That's how I know Swann. We talked about it. He said that he thought Neville and Swann killed it. I said, bro, I agree. I think Swann had the match of his WWE career. This was a fantastic outing, and I really appreciated the finish. Swann goes for a Phoenix Splash, which they don't need to replay because he missed, and Neville gets him in his submission hold, which is pretty much like the Batista bite, Rings of Saturn. I don't know what Neville calls it, but that's really what it is. And Swann taps out. But
I think it's super appropriate that Neville, this like big jacked up guy, who is basically the Batista of the Cruiserweight division, is using the Batista bite as his finish. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and dude, you know what's so crazy? I mean, he won the cruiserweight title from Swan using that move, and now he retained it against him using it. I thought he was going to beat Jack Gallagher with it last night. Of course, he did with that ridiculous red arrow. I mean, and that's the thing, like, and I don't mean to be a downer, because, again, this match was incredible. Post-match segment wasn't even bad, and we'll get to that in a second. But, like, I'd be lying to you, dude, if my heart didn't feel like a pang of sadness after watching this brilliance, because I'm like, it's really good, and these two guys are really amazing, but I dread that they're just going to be confined to the cruiserweight division. Like, the matches that Neville's been putting on in his heel work, like, I'd love to see him in the Universal title picture. Swan, I'd love to see competing for the U.S. title. I hate the thought that these two brilliant workers are going to be confined to this one really small pond. And that's really the only nitpick, if you even want to call it that I have after seeing the brilliant match that they had. This was great.
Yep. Yeah, brother. I mean, yeah, this was a really good match, strong match. I feel like the concussion spot really kind of threw me off a little bit, but even after that, Swan did a beautiful swan dive off the top rope onto Neville on the outside. That was awesome, and Graves was cheesing up about the fact that or it might have even been Aries that called it the swan dive, and just cheesed up about it. But yeah, it was a really fun match. And then after the match, of course, Aries in the ring interviewing Neville, but Chicago has other plans.
Yeah, Chicago was so into Austin Aries, which is more than I can say for myself. But you know what, Chicago, you do you. And it really did help the angle, to their credit, because Aries couldn't help but smirk. And then it's not long before Neville, who pretty much the promo here up to that point was just, again, nobody's on my level. I'm the king of the cruiserweights. That's why I'm the champion. Well, he starts antagonizing Aries. He's like, well, I've had all that I can take from you, too. So do you want to get some? And Aries is like, whoa, bruh. I'm just trying to do my job, man. That's all. And, Aries says, well, I do have one more question. Well, it's not a question so much as a statement. And he decks Neville with the microphone, and then he hits him with a discus forearm. Neville goes out of the ring. Aries poses with Neville's cruiserweight title as the crowd pops, and that's pretty much our segment. So you know what? For as much as I like to crap on Austin Aries, I felt like this was fine. You had to establish him in the cruiserweight division. We knew the return was inevitable. And if you were going to do it, I really can't begrudge them for doing it when the crowd was legitimately hot for him. So this was good stuff.
Yeah, man.
All right, we go from that to, again, the backstage segment, the realist guys running into Cesaro, and two teams mutually mock each other, but Enzo gets the last word, telling Cesaro, you just feeling bad because I lost Samoa Joe? God, Enzo, why are you such a dick now? But yeah, that was that, because they're getting their tag title rematch later in the show. And then we get to this segment. You know what? I'm going to hand the ball over to you on this one, because I'd love to know what your notes or just what you in general have to say about this, because it's the Goldberg segment. What did you think about this?
I was really curious what this information that Goldberg wanted to divulge was, and we never got to hear it because CM Punk chants and then Paul Heyman.
Yeah, they rushed Paul Heyman out there. But you know what, though? I say that as a compliment rather than laughing at Raw's expense, because they were smart about it. The moment CM Punk chants hit and Goldberg's like, yeah, I hear that, just I guess trying to go with the flow, they're like, oh, man, this title win isn't being received. Goldberg pandering, saying, this is your title as much as it is mine, is falling on deaf ears. Get Heyman out there. Get him out there. And you know what? I'm glad they did, because you know what? And again, I have to thank Chicago, because this might have actually been a slower paced segment, if not for them. I don't know how long Goldberg was planning to talk, but it wasn't nearly as long as I guess he intended to, thanks to Chicago crapping on his parade. So I'm actually indebted to them for that, because we get Heyman out fairly quickly. And what did you think of Heyman's promo here?
I mean, yeah, it was pretty much paint by numbers Paul Heyman promo. He did the spoiler thing again where he said, I don't give predictions, I give spoilers. And then talked about how the man who will be walking out of WrestleMania as the reigning, defending, undisputed Universal Champion was going to be Brock Lesnar. And then, we got an F5. Goldberg took the first bump of his return career.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people were remarking about that. Kind of a bit off-putting that Goldberg gets up, though, not too long after, and he's like, yeah, as if he did something. Like, you were on the losing end of that segment, right? So, like, my God, just get Goldberg the fuck out of here because he doesn't know how to pro wrestle. Honestly, to me, because, like, sell Kevin Owens, and then you get F5'd, and rather than being like, ooh, maybe this body can't handle it like I thought it could, and, selling some doubt or some vulnerability. No, it's like, whoa, that was great. Let's do it again. No. God damn it, no. So yeah, that frustrated me, but it was what it was. I'm just glad the segment ended as quickly as it did. Thanks again to Chicago and just Heyman doing his thing. You pretty much hit all the points that I would have. So is there anything else you want to add?
I don't think so, man. It's just interesting to see Goldberg finally taking a bump, and to all people, it's frickin' Brock.
Yeah, I know, right? Crazy. But we go from that to the realist guys versus the club for the tag titles. I'm just gonna be brief here. The match could have been good to me because Chicago was actually really into Enzo and Cass. Like the pre-match promo where Cass is likening what they're gonna do to what Michael Jordan did for the Chicago Bulls, and he named like every championship year. Like the crowd was eating out of the palm of their hands. So regardless of what I feel about Enzo and Cass these days, or what any of us feel, like Chicago tonight was into them. And I'm like, okay, that's potential for an interesting story. Like, they've got the crowd behind them. They're really looking like baby faces, and the club's the club. So maybe we could let this match breathe. No, we do not, because ultimately Sheamus and Cesaro come out. Enzo gets a tope suicida, I want to say on Gallows, but as he's celebrating, he knocks Cesaro's cup of coffee into him. So it's pretty much Kane, Chris Jericho all over again. Cesaro is chasing after Enzo. Huge fight breaks out with all these teams, with Sheamus and Cesaro coming out on top after Sheamus kicks Enzo off the shoulders of Cesaro, because Enzo had Cesaro in kind of a sleeper, and Sheamus took the shot and he hit it successfully. So yeah, it ends in a no contest. I don't really know what to tell you. It was good for what it was, I guess, but they squander it with the non-finish. Do you have anything?
Dude, I gotta tell you, like, I don't understand why they're basically turning Enzo Amore into a mosquito. Like, his role has gotten to the point that, like, he's just like a pest. Like, that's all he is. Like, he freaking knocks Cesaro over and spills the coffee or the tea or whatever it was. I'm assuming it was coffee because Cesaro's a coffee guy. So knocks the coffee out of his hand that he was drinking. And then Cesaro goes to chase him, and as he's chasing him, Enzo ducks out of the way, causing Cesaro to clobber one of the guys in the club. I don't remember which one it was. Probably Anderson.
Right.
And then, yeah, so like that, like really the club won the match by disqualification, but it was all caused by Enzo just being a freaking pest. He's obnoxious.
Didn't we used to say on NXT TWitWows, when we were really experiencing Enzo and Cass and loving them because they were so good, that Enzo's whole shtick then was slowly but surely he was getting better at wrestling? Because I feel like he could do so little, but then he was getting like progressively better.
God, and now it's like he's regressing.
Yeah. God, and that's just it. Like, I'm glad it's not just me or you or like, I just really feel like, yeah, this is not the same Enzo, because I never got this annoyed with him. I actually always loved him and Cass. I mean, even when I was feeling sadistic and like, oh man, Cass, the revival just shattered your leg. Like I always did like them, but like, man, this main roster run, just I've never been more annoyed with them. And again, particularly Enzo, I'm actually getting sympathetic for Cass because I'm like, oh my God, he has to just monitor this shit. Make sure Enzo doesn't put his foot in his mouth. But yeah, ends in a no contest. And just to kind of tack this on, the next segment after that, Enzo and Cass and Sheamus and Cesaro are arguing backstage, and Mick's like, enough! We don't handle things backstage. We handle things in the ring. So next week, Enzo and Cass, Sheamus and Cesaro, you two guys versus you two guys. Winners face the club at WrestleMania. Now I'm going to try and have a nice day. And I'm thinking, great, let's move on to our next match. But no, because then Stephanie emerges. You want to have a nice day, Mick? You better come to my office. I hate you. I hate you with everything I have, and yet it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So this hate has nowhere to go. So yeah, I'm guessing you have nothing really to say to that backstage segment. Unless you do, then have at it.
No. I'm so sick of Mick Foley saying enough. Like, I feel like I want to say, Mick, enough. Please stop.
You know something? I've been hearing rumors that like when Mick leaves, Kurt Angle, like his on-screen role is going to be GM because they don't even really want him wrestling actively that much anyway. And you know what? It has to be better than this. I would think, if for no other reason, the interesting history between Kurt and Stephanie that they could play on, even when she's being a complete bitch. And something tells me Kurt won't take her shit, or at least as much as Mick does. So I'm hoping that it's true, and I'm hoping it's better than this crap, because I've really added up to here with this. We get spoiled on SmackDown Live because you really don't see the authority figures that much. And when you do, oh, wait, it actually leads to something. And even then, the role is minimal. Just making matches. Fucking try it sometime. Don't need this additional drama bullshit. But anyway, next matchup here, Akira Tozawa versus Aria Daivari. Not really much to say here. Quick match. Tozawa goes over with a snap German suplex. Really positive note. Again, crowds still love Tozawa right now. Chicago was really into that battle cry, and Tozawa just keeps racking up that momentum. If not at WrestleMania, I have to feel like that Cruiserweight Championship is an inevitability for him, because he is one of the most over Cruiserweights on the roster right now. After the match, he grabs a mic and he calls out Kendrick. Kendrick says, you know what, I'll give you an answer on 205 Live tomorrow night, so I credit them for at least trying to make 205 Live interesting. And he says, but, this will be your fifth lesson. You're going to learn the same thing the dog does when it's finally able to bite down on its own tail. Be careful what you wish for. So great, succinct promo from Kendrick. Great work from Tozawa. Really, these guys and Neville and just, there's a lot good going on in the Cruiserweight division, and I feel like they're slowly finding their way. So we'll see where they are, by this summer when SummerSlam rolls around. Because, first, of course, the Mania match, but then after that, I'm really wondering if the Cruiserweight division can get it together, because there is a lot good going on here. And I enjoyed this. What did you think about it?
Yeah, it was all right. I wasn't super into, I love Tozawa, but the match itself, really what this did was get me semi-interested in seeing the fallout on 205 Live tomorrow. And that's not to say I'm actually going to watch 205 Live. That's just to say when the video of the confrontation between Tozawa and Kendrick shows up on WWE's YouTube channel, I'll watch it.
I was even going to say, oh yeah, Ashton will watch 205 Live on YouTube. But yeah, so that's what we're all waiting for. And again, I'm still a fan of Aria Daivari, and I feel like, he's sold well and everything. I just hope that the day comes that he gets more to do, and then he gets to be that heel that gets to make a run for the title, say if maybe Cedric's champion or somebody's champion, because I still love what the guy's about, and yeah, I hope one day he does get his chance to shine. And speaking of people shining, our next match, The New Day versus the Shining Stars, which I can barely even call a match because as I put in my notes, this was more about New Day getting over their pop cycle that they debuted last night than actually wrestling. They cut a little promo about that. But then the match itself with the Shining Stars, very quick because they started to pick a fight with Xavier, but then Big E and Kofi took them both out. And then the New Day win with the Midnight Hour. This match couldn't have been more than 3 minutes because that's really what it felt like to me. Do you have anything you have to say about this?
I don't think so. I thought that this was, the match was solid, but it was quick. It was non-existent, basically. So, I don't know, man. I feel like New Day is in sort of that mid-card hell, but they're hosting WrestleMania. So, obviously, the WWE sees money in them. They just don't know what to do with them on TV right now.
God, I hope that WrestleMania hosting leads to something, but then again, look where we are, so I ain't getting my hopes up. Those feet ain't even leaving the fucking ground, my man. Next segment, the Bayley promo. Do you even have anything else you do want to say about this, since we covered it somewhat extensively in our opening segment of Heat in the Night?
No, I don't want to say anything about it.
Okay, then we go to our next match, Bayley versus Sasha. It should be noted that in the preceding promo, it was established that if Sasha were to beat Bayley, then the WrestleMania match between Bayley and Charlotte would become a triple threat. Here's the thing. I thought this was a really fun match. Great chemistry. I thought there was a nice story going because when Sasha would seem to get a bit too aggressive with Bayley, like she'd look at her some way or be a bit surprised, and Sasha's like, come on, it's about WrestleMania, right? And just be like, oh, I'm not being malicious. I'm being competitive. There's a difference. So I like that story developing there. But again, and not to be an ass about it, it'd be much stronger if all the stories surrounding it were strong and had teeth. Like, I want to care about this at the maximum level, not just at the level that these two are really good in-ring workers with each other. And that really is shown here. I thought this, again, was a very well put together match. Charlotte's on commentary, not much to say there. Her and Dana come down. They want to interfere, but Sasha thwarts the interference attempt. And, she rolls Bayley back in the middle of the ring with the bank statement, which she had applied on her for some time, and Bayley taps out. Now, I know I saw some people complaining, like, oh, Bayley losing outright. And yeah, I mean, I don't like it in the sense of, oh, every champion loses the non-title match, and that's how we establish our contenders, which is quite literally what happened here. But if it makes sense with any champion, it is a champion like Bayley who is supposed to struggle. In fact, if anything, I wish she was struggling more than what she has been lately. So yeah, Sasha gets the win. Really fun match. Charlotte nails big boots to both of them in the post-match, holds up the title. Road to 5-time continues for Charlotte, and that's pretty much that. But yeah, really enjoyable match. What did you think about it?
So I actually missed the end of this match. What was the finish again?
Okay, so Sasha had Bayley in the bank statement, and Charlotte had come down with Dana, and Dana was distracting the ref. I feel like Charlotte was going to cost Sasha, like Sasha did 24 hours ago to Charlotte, but Sasha thwarted the attempt. She kicked Charlotte away, and then she pivoted herself, so she got Bayley back in the center of the ring in the bank statement, and Bayley tapped out. And then in the post-match again, Charlotte big booted them both and held up the title. So that was the finish.
So it was just a straight up Bayley taps out clean. Sasha is going to be in the triple threat now.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. They do so much better of a job of protecting Charlotte than they do Bayley. It's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, they do. I mean, again, I guess I don't mind it too much because if it could work with any champion, it is somebody that's supposed to struggle. And like I said, if anything, I just wish she had been struggling more up to this point. But that's another rant for another time. Anything else you want to say about this match or its implications?
I'm curious how Nia Jax is going to get involved, but she will.
I'm actually hoping that it's her, even though I know it's heel versus heel, I'm kind of hoping it's her versus Charlotte next week. This way, everybody will have gotten experience with each other for the Fatal 4-Way, and I could just see Nia destroy Charlotte, which I think would put a smile on my face. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking will happen. But it'll probably be Nia versus Bayley, let's be honest. They'll just keep piling it on her. So, we'll see. But,
all right, so then we had the Triple H via satellite thing, right?
Yeah, before that, Roman Reigns was interviewed very briefly, and he said he'll be waiting in the ring for Braun Strowman. Oh, none of that happened. But then, yeah, we get Triple H via satellite. What did you think about what he had to say here?
I was actually kind of tempted to make this heat of the night, honestly, because I feel like he went almost way too far out of his way to bury Seth.
Oh, like with the whole listen to the oh, you know what I think you probably thought the burial was if I had to guess? Like I never called myself the game, people called me that, whereas Seth, you always had to call yourself the man because you were never the man, more or less, right?
That's exactly. I said while you were talking, which is why I didn't say anything after you were done talking because I thought you heard me, but apparently you didn't. So yeah, that's exactly a big problem to me. Like you basically make Seth look like a geek, and in the process, you put over the guy that he put over the most with Seth is Doctor. So, like, now all of a sudden, like, the Doctor is the greatest doctor in the freaking world, and he's going to help Seth to come back. And it's not going to be because of Seth, it's going to be because of the Doctor, because Triple H says the Doctor's, like, the best at what he does. So, like, you did a better job of putting over the Doctor than Seth. You basically went out of your way to bury Seth and put over yourself. So yeah, like accomplished, really.
I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, again, I thought the promo had promise in one way, like, oh, Seth better listen to those doctors. But then when you go on, like, again, making it about you, like, oh, people called me the game. I never called myself that. Whereas you always had to call yourself the man. I mean, I guess in one way I can understand why you said it because, again, you want to make Seth seem really sympathetic, like, oh, you're not that good, only for Seth to come back and prove, oh, yes, I am, and you and everybody now knows it. But, it's just, I guess, in that Triple H way that always leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So it was what it was. After this, we get the Emma vignette. We both talked about that in our Heat of the Night segment, so I'm going to just bypass that. Our next match, Samoa Joe versus Chris Jericho. Not much to say here. This is a fairly quick match and a dominant win for Joe. The finish was he choked Jericho out on the outside of the Coquina Clutch. And Joe actually seemed like a smart heel here because he didn't get lost in the suffering of Jericho with the Coquina Clutch. He broke it, I think, on 8. He got back in, got the count-out victory. Then he was going to continue the assault. So actually being an intelligent heel was Joe. But Jericho, I guess, got his wits about him in time because he hits a code breaker on Joe, sending him out. So, yeah, I like that Joe looked dominant. I like that he was intelligent, actually getting the victory and not putting it before the beatdown. If I had any complaints, and again, probably the pickiest of nits, I wish that Kevin Owens would have come out again because I loved what he did to start the show, and I would have loved to have seen that mean streak in one other segment at Jericho's expense, especially because he just cost Owens the Universal Championship 24 hours ago. And we never saw Owens again after what he did to Zayn, who wasn't even his primary target in the first place. But other than that, good stuff.
I'm really kind of foggy, I think, on what the rules are for a count out, but I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to continue the count if an offensive maneuver gets done.
Is that the case? Because, I wasn't even given that any mind, to be honest with you.
No, like when somebody, if person A attacking person B, person A is the one who is responsible for breaking up the count, not person B. So in this case, Joe is person A, Jericho is person B. Joe getting in the ring should have broken up the count. It shouldn't have, like the referee literally watching Joe choke Jericho out on the outside should not have continued counting when Joe got back in the ring. He should have started the count over for Jericho.
Right, I get what you're saying. Well, that didn't happen. Joe won by countout, which, again, maybe they did that because it's just trying to tell us, no, Joe is not going to be in the U.S. title picture, because I feel like if he was, he would have gotten a more emphatic win, like a pinfall or just straight-up submission win in the ring. I don't know. I feel like that count-out victory was just their way of protecting Jericho because he's the champion, and we only want him to lose definitively to Owens. I don't know, man. I don't know what their reasoning is, but it happened. Do you have anything else you want to say about it?
I don't think so, man. This is going to be one of our quickest Raw reviews in a while.
Yeah, mercifully so. Because I'll tell you, again, this Raw had a lot of good to its credit, but, man, some stuff. And then we get to our main event segment, which I don't even really know what else there is to say. Strowman had an opening promo, which I was enjoying and getting into because I always anticipate seeing Strowman, which I'll readily confess. That's probably another reason why it was one of my heats of the night, like subjective saltiness, because I love Strowman, and I got so little of him tonight. Taker comes out. Strowman backs off. Then Reigns comes out. He's like, yo, Strowman asked for me, not you. So with all due respect, this is my yard now. Boo! And then Taker, of course, you really could have done a Pawn to King 4 thing for the rest. Because Taker glances up in the Mania sign, throttles Reigns by the throat. And to be honest, I was surprised by anything. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Taker got the choke slam off. I thought Reigns would have landed on his feet and speared Taker to a sea of boos, because Roman Reigns. But Taker actually stood tall here. We know we're getting this for Mania. It's happening. I just hate again. Why did Strowman facilitate all this? Why was he an afterthought? All those questions. But it was what it was. Ashton, do you have anything you want to add to this segment that you didn't already when we were talking about in Heat of the Night?
The whole "this is my yard now" line kind of got under my skin because he's going to beat Undertaker and they're actually going to treat it like a passing of the torch moment.
Yeah, they are. Time to grit your teeth and bear it, people. 27 days. Well, 26 now because it's after midnight. We're still going here. But, yeah, all the same, it's happening. Whatever. I guess I'm kind of curious how they're going to build this, but I just want it to be over with. Much like this review is coming to a close because that was our main event segment. So let's get right into our next segment, high spots and low shots. And low shot Braun Strowman. They made this big thing. Braun Strowman's going to finish what he started with Roman Reigns. And he really didn't do anything. Like, he just cut a very brief promo and then left. Like, and this is coming off again after his first loss, after being this monstrosity. Not a good 24 hours for Braun, and I know we're only supposed to look at the Raw, and I am just looking at the Raw. He didn't do anything. So even people that lost, they did stuff because they competed. They were a part of the show. Braun had very little presence. That's why he's my low shot.
Man, that had to hurt you on the inside to say.
It did, man. It did so much. Like, I'm not even kidding. You go from having actually the most presence at time on Raw to the least tonight, except for people that didn't actually appear. And I feel like that, honestly, at that point is just splitting hairs. It hurt for sure. But who's your low shot?
Man, I mean, really, I want to say my low shot is Canadian baby faces, because Sami Zayn and Chris Jericho. But you know what? I actually isn't Arya Davari. Oh no, he's Iranian. He's from Detroit. Detroit might as well be Canada, but it's not. So I'm not going to say that. But anyway, but to avoid saying something as weird and sort of out of left field as that, I'm just going to make my low shot Bayley, because she is the only champion on this show who lost clean.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's an excellent low shot, and it actually seamlessly transitions into my high spot, because my high spot's Sasha Banks.
I'm not even right. She's not the only champion that lost clean. Jericho lost clean, but Bayley tapped out. Jericho got passed out. There's a difference. Bayley's worse. She's my low shot.
There you go. And again, I agree, and it does seamlessly transition to my high spot, who again is Sasha Banks, because she explicitly punched her ticket to Mania tonight. She beat Bayley. The Raw Women's Championship match is now a triple threat. Is she manipulative? Hell the fuck yes. But I'm waiting for Sasha to say it, not anybody else whose opinions are utterly worthless. So yeah, Sasha is my high spot.
I think, oh man, who's my high spot going to be? You know what? This is going to be strictly from a kayfabe perspective, just so everybody knows that. My high spot is Triple H, because, I mean, he got on the satellite interview and he buried Seth Rollins and built himself up, so that's a plus for him. His two prodigies, Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe, both won their respective matches in dominant fashion. And yeah, like, Triple H is just at the top of the world right now. And of course, his wife got to assert her dominance, as always, on Raw as well. So yeah, Triple H is at the top of the world right now.
King of Kings, baby. Yeah, King of Kings, baby. I agree. That's a great
the King.
Final segment of the night, Raw request. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't get to round out my notes with a written down Raw request, but I'm going to try and not ho and hum about it. I'm going to say my Raw request is, get your narratives in order. And again, this pertains to the women's segment. You had something really interesting going, like, oh, Sasha only did what she did because she knew it was the only way back to the title picture. But you really didn't explore it where it mattered, and that's with the relation between Bayley and Sasha. You did a little bit in ring, to your credit, because Bayley was like, well, why'd you arm drag me that hard? Or why'd you hit me that hard? Or what's happening here? Is this a friendly competitive match?
What are you going to do? Arm drag me?
Yeah, that's a thing.
He's back.
Yeah, he is. And yeah, I really wish they'd get their narrative beats in order, because I mean that there is potential for great stories, everywhere. They just don't take advantage of them. Same way with Braun and Reigns. Like, he should have been like, this was a guy that raged when Sami Zayn got the upper hand. Roman straight up beat him. He should be like tearing everybody apart that even looks at him wrong, and he leaves the ring of the Undertaker. It's totally backwards. Get your narrative beat straight and learn how to tell a fucking story. That's my Raw request. What's your Raw request?
I feel like you kind of like if it was Halloween and we went up to a house and they had, their light on and they had one of those cute little pumpkin, plastic pumpkins out front of their door with a bunch of candy in it, and they had a little sign that says, please just take one. You just reached in and emptied the thing out with one fell swoop.
That was the wordiest explanation for me committing a broad stroke I think I've ever heard you articulate. And this is coming from the wordy guy. It's called
buying time, because you took the one thing that literally overlaps every Raw request I could possibly have, so I have no clue what I'm about to say.
Oh, just either say suck less or co-sign with me. You know this show's horrible most of the time.
I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do, though, since you took all of my narrative points with one fell swoop, what I am going to do is I'm going to request that you give us more cruiserweight division storyline progression on Raw, because you should save 205 Live for the longer matches and have like 2, maybe 3 matches tops on every episode of 205 Live, but give them like 15 minutes so that they're highly enjoyable. And then do a lot more of your narrative-based stuff on Raw so that we can keep up, so that we know what's going on, so that I know why Rich Swann got a championship match tonight, and so that we get more of an explanation on this whole Tozawa Kendrick situation. I'm sick of commentary explaining everything. I want things explained through narrative, not just commentary.
I really like that. That's an excellent Raw request. With that said, are there any concluding remarks you have about Raw tonight?
Yeah, I do. I have one concluding remark that I want to say about Raw tonight that I think a lot of people are going to agree with. This Raw wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good. I think that the easiest word to describe this episode of Raw was just boring. It felt very uneventful, except for, Undertaker. But really, if you're like me and don't care about Undertaker, that wasn't even exciting.
Right. Yeah, I can totally sympathize with people who threw the word boring around. And it's a shame, too, because, again, I was feeling like the first hour and a half of the show, it felt like. But, again, when the bad stuff started coming in, it just seemed like, when it rains, it pours, as the saying goes. And that's kind of how I felt with this Raw. Anything else?
No, sir. That was my final thought, and it was final. So I'm final. I'm finalized. It's finalized.
All right, there you go. Well, this has been Raw. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary Ashton. Guys, you already know all of our media and things to check out. Thanks to the description. Our Twitters are there. Our Facebook is there. Our Patreon is there. Our Teespring store. Everything is in there. Check it out. As far as plugs go for things coming up, we've got SmackDown live reactions tomorrow night. Thanks to you guys reaching the Patreon community goal, we are live reacting to every SmackDown Live on the road to WrestleMania, and we know we are getting Randy Orton versus AJ Styles on this show, and I've got to imagine Bray Wyatt's response to the Wyatt family compound being burned down last week. Cannot wait to live react to that show. Wednesday, Lucha Rewatch Season 2 begins. We go live 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be covering episodes 1 and 2. It's going to be 2 episodes a week, every Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be a great series. We know you've all been jonesing for that Lucha Fix. I've been jonesing for a Lucha Fix. I know my core and commentary here has been. So I think this will satisfy everybody as we wait for their return May 31st. And they hit Netflix in 8 days' time. So Lucha Rewatch is going to be huge. And as far as just in the future goes, because I think that's our only... Oh, and our NXT review. We will be reviewing NXT this Wednesday as well.
On Thursday, we will be doing a review of WWE In Your House Degeneration X.
That's right. We've got quite a few reviews this month that are Patreon requested. That's right. I'm glad you said something, partner, because that is something I would have forgotten about. So that is Thursday. So yeah, guys, it is a jam-packed week. Again, we just did Raw, SmackDown live reactions tomorrow, Lucha Rewatch, and an NXT review on Wednesday. So that's going to be big. And then Thursday, Patreon review, Degeneration X In Your House 1997. And then looking into the future, you guys know what's coming. Q&A. I plug Q&A every time I come up here. Q&A number 9 is going to be March 31st. Last Friday of every month. That is March 31st this month. Get your questions in. I got to say, I've already been seeing quite a few questions. I think we're going to do a healthy number this month if it keeps on this trajectory. But if you haven't gotten your questions in yet, you've still got 20 plus days to get them in. You got 24 days to get your questions in to us either through Twitter or YouTube or Facebook. Like, you have a multitude of mediums. There is no reason why you can't get your questions in. You're afforded a maximum of 4 questions. We raised the cap 1 after the last Q&A. It is now 4 questions. You can divvy them up any way you like. You can make all 4 questions to both of us, or if you want to leave one of us out in the cold, you can ask all 4 questions to one of us. However you want to divide it, that's solely at your discretion. So I'm very curious what questions we will have to tackle for March Q&A. So get those questions in. With that said, guys, you know the rundown for the week. It's looking like a great week for TWitWoW fans. Until then, tune in and peace out.